Alex William Smith by birth, but better known to many of you in the hypnosis world as Jonathan Royal, the British bad boy of hypnosis of magicalguru.com. And I'm delighted to have, yes, the gentleman I'm about to introduce you to is a trained hypnotherapist. Yes, he is. However, that is not the main reason I've asked him to come on the show. It's because I'm also a believer that hypnotherapy, people say you cannot make people do things against their will, their morals or their values with hypnosis. And my key in a sentence to that is that you've not been taught properly then, quite frankly, because Delavar, aka Gordon Me, who taught me, and his parents, his grandparents and his great-grandparents were hypnotists or mesmerists, as it was called back then. In their books, going back well over 100 years, they categorically tell you how you can use hypnosis to create mind-controlled assassins, for example. And Dell's family did indeed work with the British Army. So I was drawn to the gentleman I'm about to introduce you to a few years ago now.
There's a guy called Kurt Lewin, who was basically the chairman, or I forget his exact title, but he is in charge of Tavistock for a long, long time in the 30s. And he noticed this, and basically he just felt that for the benefit of society, that what would be better is that basically if we just always give society low levels of trauma, be that sort of general aspirational things like, your mortgage, your job, like not doing as well as people, not being as attractive as the next person, all of these things where you've got sort of comparative levels. What that does is it basically breaks people. It reduces them. Essentially what it does is it reduces their critical analysis, so that they can't make decisions. And if you can't make decisions, you're more likely to either just basically do what is the established way of doing things, the normal way of doing things, or you go to an authority figure and say, will you please tell me how to do this? And it would appear that, although this sounds rather conspiratorial, that this was actually a genuine thing. In 1963, I believe it was, there was a gentleman called Eric Trist, and he was at the time, again, the head of the Tavistock Institute. And for some bizarre reason, he did a press conference in which he proclaimed that the whole point of what Tavistock was trying to do was create what he called social turbulence. And social turbulence is what we've just been saying, which is basically it's causing uncertainty in the general population to the point where basically, this because this is kind of how hypnosis works. Stick on some music, talk to them, blah, blah. Your brain's got a finite bandwidth. And if you can fill that, this is how mantras work, or Buddhist incantations and all these types of stuff. It's filling that bandwidth of the brain so that basically you don't have any extra thoughts.
Sensory overload.
Exactly right. And the point is that when you've got this sensory overload, you can't be making decisions. Like you can't go into sort of. And again, and you're right, it's a very, very carefully constructed image. But the same thing you say with Donald Trump, people think, and Nigel Farage, people think that like he's their mate, like he's the sort of person that's going to do stuff. And what's been apparent from both of their responses, Trump and Johnson, it shows two things. One, their incompetence as a leader, completely incompetent. They're not fit for this type of job. They're not fit for this type of pressure, and they don't actually know how to respond. And the second thing is that basically they're taking orders from somebody, Dominic Cummings. In the case of
his name, I've got a note here because Dominic Cummings effectively is the puppet master of Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much, basically. It's all that sort of, it's the same people, it's the new frontier. You've got very, very wealthy people that are basically selling you a lie. And it's very, very, it's all connected to essentially the election of Trump and Brexit. And I hate to say this and oversimplify it, but essentially it boils down to, they've told you they're going to get rid of brown people, and that's really what it is. And they're playing on lots of different things: fear, uncertainty, but also a degree of.
Brexit was all about borders and race and stuff.
It's jingoistic in as much as basically how it works. I tell you what's really a problem. Okay, a real problem at the minute is the news, because people are looking to the news for some sort of answers. Look, this is.
Which is ironic, because the news will only print what they're told to by the people who tell them what.
Well, aside from that, it's not just that, mate. It's also the fact that basically they're a business. They're there to make money, and they're there to keep you watching. And I sat watching the news yesterday, and it's like, this is nonsense. This isn't helping at all. It's just ramping up fear, ramping up sensationalism, making everyone terrified, blah, 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 blah. And then it struck me, it's like, well, of course they're doing that. They want you to stay there and keep watching so that you find out the next bit of useful information. Now, the problem at the minute is that this is exacerbated by the fact that because of this virus, there's one story in the entire medium of news at the minute. So there's nothing to take away from that. So not only have we got this constant churning of pressure, we've got no break from that. And this is causing either complete paralysis through the fear of it, basically going, oh my God, we're all doomed, or it's causing compassion fatigue on the opposite end, where people have gone, yeah, you keep telling me this, but I ain't seeing it out the window. So it's almost like a sort of mental car sickness. Right, basically the Second World War. So like they would introduce phrases like isolationists and collateral damage and stuff like that. There was even a suggestion that basically Tavistock were the first people to suggest doing sort of carpet bombing of civilians with the I forget which one it was. I think it was in Freiburg, Germany. Basically, just bomb a house. It's the bomb a house campaign, and this predated Guernica. So basically, the British military or Royal Air Force were bombing civilians before the Nazis were bombing civilians as a means of causing, the loss of morale and stuff like that. But this is the point. They take these psychological principles and they will apply it to populations in whatever manner that they can. So, yeah, but that was the whole point of Trump doing it. Like I said this like a few years ago on Rich Planet. I said, look, if anybody else had said the phrases that Donald Trump had said, like fake news, if that had been in Cuba, everybody had been like, oh, well, there you go. If it had been in like Korea, everyone would go, oh, there you go, or China, because these are the actions of a dictator. Now, again, I don't trust the media. Donald Trump upped drone strikes against civilian targets by about 200%, right? And Obama was a maniac for that. Trump is far, far worse. It's just that nobody seems to be paying any attention to what he's doing. He's also introduced a law that means that America no longer reports civilian deaths caused by American military, which essentially means that they're covering up war crimes.
Welcome to Some Dare Call It Conspiracy with Brent Lee and Neil Sanders. This is Midnight in Riga, a prelude. Today, we are joined by Alexander Alaphilippe, co-founder and executive director of EU Disinfolab, a leading non-governmental organization dedicated to exposing and combating disinformation across Europe. Our conversation explores the diverse forms of disinformation. Join us as we uncover the intricacies of these campaigns and the efforts to combat them. Welcome, Alexander Alaphilippe. Right, Alex, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm good. It's December, end of the year, so almost done. Looking forward to start 2025 with less disinformation, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, and thank you as well. Thank you for your hospitality inviting us over to Latvia. We had an absolutely incredible time. Just to explain to everyone, we went to the EU Disinfolab conference in Riga, Latvia. It was a two-day event put on by Alex, and it was astonishing. It was full of really, really fascinating characters, talking about all sorts of different sort of concepts about fighting disinformation and where disinformation is coming from and how to tackle it and the problems inherent with that. I have to admit, Alex, I did feel
last up on the stair. He spoke of was and when, although I wasn't there. He said I was his friend, which came as some surprise. I spoke into his eyes. I thought you died alone a long, long time ago. I know, not me. I never lost control. Your face to face with the man who sold the world.
Target. That was basically what happened with Sirhan. Sirhan, he thought that he was shooting at a rifle range at a fair, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or at least he said that, didn't he? So,
Yeah, but I think the fact he said it, I strongly suspect that is probably what he did think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I don't think that he was the person that actually shot Robert Kennedy. I think it was what's his name, Eugene Cesar, who was the security guard. And when Robert Kennedy died, he was holding on to Eugene Cesar's tie. I mean, I was always sort of interested in what could be termed sort of conspiracies, like on a sort of hobby basis. I was like interested in JFK and like, you know, Loch Ness. There's different levels, isn't there? Like I think of things like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and Champ and all that sort of, you know, cryptozoology and stuff like that, and ghosts. So I think that's kind of fun. Like, do you know what I mean? It's interesting. It's a bit wacky. Then there's sort of other things like JFK, which are getting a bit more sort of serious and stuff like that. And then there's all the other things, which are sort of like declassified military experiments and stuff like that. How I actually got into it, it's a bit weird, Jonathan. I was trying to bribe a friend of mine to start a punk band, and so I did some songs, like some sort of like ska tracks, and I put Aldous Huxley talking over the top of it as like a sample. And I sent it up to Richard D. Hall because he was doing a music thing. And the whole point of it was just so I could convince my mate to go, see, he likes it, come and sing in a band with me. But basically Richard got in touch with us.